Hi, and welcome back. Good afternoon, good morning. So, uh, thank you so much for coming back to this second installment of the course on continuous localization. Um, I think before we get started, I suggest we have a little bit of time to reflect on yesterday's course. And in order to reflect on that, uh, I bring here this quote, which I think is an important one, that it's the continuous localization is an ultimate test for a supply chain because it's about like small jobs, it's about repeated jobs, and it is about like really highlighting the inefficiencies of that exists in the supply chain. And there are two ways of uh, handling this. What one is to optimize our own delivery capabilities as supply chain, make sure that the process is flowing better, so improving the process that already exists. Or the other option is reinventing continuous localization from the bottom up. And I would like to invite you today to discuss both. We will start with the first one, and we are going to continue with the second one. The second one is going to be a conversation where I would like to invite you because it's not clear for anybody like how our processes in the industry should be reinvented. So please get your thoughts together. I mean, you've been in this course, you've seen a lot of like cutting edge things, and join the conversation. I will be very happy to enable the audio for any of you if you are ready to talk. The first one is something that we looked at yesterday. And if you remember, we went through like who is hosting the different systems in an enterprise tech stack or in a multilingual vendor tech stack. We went through the multilingual vendor, single language vendor, translator supply chain, which is a very important one, especially for scalable localization. Went through the steps of the continuous localization and highlighted that different entities are using different types of systems, and there may be uh, in a 50 language project, there may be over 150 people involved in one tiny project of three sentences. We were looking at the issue of the working hours not overlapping across Asia with the west coast of the United States, which is a very prominent orderer of continuous localization projects. And we discussed that content updates and quoting should be not included in continuous localization. Uh, what we also talked about was the vendor assignment being a very, very important step. Uh, and the business management to know how much was translated by each translator so that the different players in the translation supply chain are able to give a purchase order at the end of the month. Uh, we looked at the project management capabilities, and what we concluded with was that at BeLazy we came up with the concept of project management unification, and we went into a little bit of a AI showcasing of how you can use a chat interface such as Claude or ChatGPT in order to generate translation projects with as much information as necessary. Uh, this kind of an approach is also getting into the realm of the LLM-oriented project management, which is something that not a lot of people do so far. But we also mentioned that vendor evaluation, assignment, vendor selection are things that still require more work because on the database level, the different systems that are managing these vendors, which are mostly the business management systems rather than translation management systems, uh, they don't have all the information that project managers have in their head. So let's have a quick look at what is project management unification. Then I would like to talk about something that you may have heard about. Hi, Remy again, sorry. Uh, you may have heard about the metadata uh, based or metadata oriented project management and the exception based project management. These are pretty much the same thing. Uh, I would like to show why we started like project management unification, project centralization, and what triggered the need for another type of software, which is not really a TMS nor a BMS. If you like, it's an orchestration layer, but it's also about like making sure that everything is registered correctly and all the systems are in sync. And then today we are getting into XLib based, well, AI processing, if you like, which is the way that Be Lazy chose the text processing. I know that you went through the different parts of uh, the the LLM-based capabilities. What I'm talking about here is like machine translation quality estimation, automated post-editing, obviously translation itself, glossary extraction, human quality estimation, these kind of things. And I know that you went into also like more sophisticated solutions with knowledge graphs and other options. Here today, we are going to look at how to separate the actual language management from the tool set. So one of the things we do at BeLazy, which we find very important, is the separation of concerns. Because what we think is that the language management, the linguistic part, the prompting, these kind of things, they should be independent from whether you are using SmartLink, crowding, localize, or phrase or XTM. What I think is that in every respect, you have source segment, target segment, matches, comments, these kind of things. And the linguistic added value in this has nothing to do with the technology wizardry. So having a unified approach and the portability of what you are doing linguistically with LLMs, with glossaries, with everything is a very important part of taking ownership of the language quality. So let's look into the project management unification topic. But before we go into this, I'm just wondering if anybody has any questions or comments relating to yesterday's topics or what we were talking about today. Please share it in the chat. Again, I actually would love you to speak. Uh, I will make the slides available, no worries, after today's session. Ponso was asking yesterday, but the only thing is that I created one set of slides rather than one set of slides for each session because I wasn't sure how far we are getting. So, if there is nothing else, and I am very much used to interaction, so please keep it coming. I always feel much more relevant if people say that things make sense. So any feedback is always appreciated. Um, let's go into this project management unification topic. Thanks, Larry. So thanks. So nice. You're really nice. Um, So the project management unification is basically metadata-based injection of projects into the right systems. And like what we are used to is working with translation management systems and business management systems. And if you look back earlier in the charts that I showed, and if you want, I can show it again. Uh, what we are talking about is that projects can come from CMSs, they can go into TMSs, they can go into orchestrators, middleware. There are task management systems. So there can be email-based project creation. So there is a lot of different places where translation projects can come from. There can be also customer portals. Customer portals can be related to TMSs. They can be related to business management systems. They can be related to everything else. There can be, Dropbox folders, all of these things. So there is like a lot of really important sources where things are coming. And of course, the string repositories. Um, and then this needs to go into a TMS and a BMS. And what's been like traditionally a problem? Like an enterprise normally is able to work with one TMS. But if a company buys another company, the other company may have a localization team that is already working with another TMS, that is already making two TMSs. Then what is going to be the migration, which is not an easy one? Do you really need to migrate, or can you just use two and get still all the data? This is where the business management part comes in. Uh, Another thing is that sometimes companies are using a development-oriented TMS such as Crowd and Localize, you name it, for string management. And they are using a document-oriented TMS for marketing, for web, things like that. In this case also, you may want to either go from one TMS to another, or you may want to just, have like a single overview of all the projects you are working with. And this is basically what we are talking about when we come to unification. And this is, of course, a very different story on the language service provider side. Because on the language service provider side, you have customers. If customers take ownership of their TMSs, then what happens is that you will have to work with different types of TMSs and very often in these TMSs. The interesting thing here is that when it comes to TMSs, there is usually a lot of capabilities that are like pretty much the same across different TMSs. What is not the same is how easily you can get something done. This is something that I've seen, when I was back at MemoQ almost 10 years ago, then we were thinking like we were doing so great and we could do everything. And somebody came with a problem, we're gonna take it, we're gonna solve it. So this built like a lot of ego. And after that, I went and worked with Nimdzi Insights as a consultant, and I was involved in TMS selections. It was super interesting to see that the details, the little things, made a huge amount of difference. So that's when I learned to strip off the ego and simply say that there is no, one single solution. And very often it was not because MemoQ couldn't do something, but it was because it was like much more inconvenient to do it the way they wanted to do it. And because of this, today I am having the impression that there is not going to be a single dominant TMS in the market, simply because different companies work differently. Think about the maturity cycle. Think about the type of content they are translating. Think about whether, for example, they are having internal translators or outsourcing. And for an internal translator team, the CAT tool, the actual editor interface, is super important. If you're outsourcing, who cares really? You are interested in the outsourcing capabilities. So because of this, every LSP is working with multiple types of customers. I mean, not every LSP is working with customers who already have TMSs, but we're talking here about continuous localization. And continuous localization, I've never seen exist without a TMS. So And then comes the single language vendors and the translators who are working with different vendor portals besides working with TMSs. So this is why project ingestion is a huge story, because depending on which level you are, different systems are actually getting into a what I would like to call pipeline. Next topic is try to harmonize the project management by making sure that the outsourcing and the typical things are addressed in a singular way. And there are a couple of things that even in the simplest project you have to do. You have to accept the project often, you have to register it somewhere, you have to create a TMS project. When you are already having a TMS project, you might work with XLIF download upload, XLIF being the localization interchange format. Then you've got the vendor assignment, which is always a case. You've got job statuses, you've got some sort of workflow, and workflows can be very, very different. Task management can be very, very different between tools, but something exists, right? And some status management exists. And then there is the project delivery, which is something that also happens. In certain systems, you are working within the system. In other systems, you are downloading XLIF, uploading XLIF. In other systems, you don't even have an XLIF in the first place, so you're working with source files. In yet another system, you are working with packages. Think about Trados to an extent. Think about MemoQ. Both of these systems have like a very prominent package approach, and you just need to get everything in. You need to do all of these same things in a similar way, and then you need to get it back out. Linguist assignment is always an issue, right? So what we can also say is that every system has certain data points. Some systems are going to have like client. Other systems are going to have buyer. The third one is calling end customer, the customer, or department. For example, in Trados Enterprise, it's called a location. The customer department is called a location in like a tree type structure. But after all, it's all about all information about the customer. What you can see is that the customer's name in one system may not be the same as in the other system. You may have, for example, a short name in your normal system, and in an invoicing system, let's say you've got the fully qualified name with limited liability company and all of these things in there. So you need to harmonize this. Everything is basically giving you data points, and identifying and extracting the data points allows you to unify the project management, because what you need to know about each system is basically what data points you are going to work with, and what decisions you are basing on these data points. This is basically harmonizing the usage of different tools. And then what else is about unification? Another thing is that sometimes you get like, let's say, a linguist account. Sometimes you get, for example, separate, let's say, different connectors sometimes give different language information in separate projects. So let's say I've seen some people who had access to their PIM system or from their PIM system into phrase TMS. And these projects came in single language pairs. And there were like 20 of them each time they did an import. I mean, that's probably because they did an XLIF, and in XLIF, the source file is different regarding the target language. So the source file already is kind of like helping you with the target language. If you are taking a Word file, for example, you don't have that problem. There is no indication, and you can have the same source file for all the languages. So bundling is basically unification. If you receive, for example, two different steps in the workflow as different projects, put it back into one workflow. If you are receiving multiple languages in different projects, put it back into one project, one multilingual project. It's easier to have an overview of it. If you are receiving files one by one, put them into batches. What else? If you, for example, want to have like a monthly project, then do it. So the bundling is a way of keeping the sanity for the overview, because in reality, you can have like a million different projects. If you are using full automation, this may not be an issue. If there are project managers working with this, then they prefer if you don't have a project for every single word, more or less, or every single sentence. And then finally, the unification, as we talk about it, is topped by a single API that allows capabilities on a general level. So what you are saying is assign this vendor from the, let's say, into the translation management system and into the business management system. You should not worry whether you are working in XTM with XTRF or I don't know, Crowding with Protemos or Phrase with Plunet or SmartLink. It should be all the same. So there should be basically one way of automation, and then everything behind that, the systems behind that, should be kind of like replaceable, pluggable. And it is one way of ensuring that you remain future-proof, because systems change, but not only systems change, but also systems pricing policies change. If you are like too logged in into one system, then that is kind of like taking over your goodwill very often, especially if they are bought by private equity, where the only goal is basically to make sure that they are making as much money as they can. And then basically what you should be able to do is like kind of independent, retain the independence to a certain extent. So unification or centralization. Christian, tell me more about Plumet. Unification or centralization is kind of the same thing, so I'm going to use it interchangeably. The only reason why we finally went with unification is that in enterprises, centralized programs and decentralized programs, they actually have a different meaning. And it's not about like not having a dashboard, but it's about basically making sure that you've got like your decisions or your ordering on a local level or on a centralized level, and there is no one good solution there. So let's have a look. Let's analyze what we need to do with projects. We need to get projects into a system. Then we need to prepare projects, because if you get a PDF file or if you get, something like that needs a lot of preparation, that needs to be prepared. So let's not forget about project preparation. Very often projects have a quoting component. Very interesting part of this is that after that, there may be other project preparation. What are we talking about? If, for example, and this is obviously much more solid on the language service provider part than on the enterprise part. If you, for example, have a customer that is 95% sure to order a translation, but still requires a quote for formal acceptance reasons, you are going to do pretty much all the work to give the most precise quote. So you're going to do like the pre-DTP, probably investing that, even without having the quote approved. If you have another customer that is always shopping around and lowest price wins, but nobody can guarantee the lowest price, you are not going to invest work. You are going to throw that PDF into, I don't know, call it LLM, call it like word count or something, whatever comes out, and maybe you get the deal. And maybe even you lose on the deal. But, you just don't want to do more, because if you lose a little bit on the deal, it's not really a big issue. It is much more costly to do the preparation and then not get the deal. So then this is why there is like project preparation and further project preparation separated. Then you need to have vendor assignment. This is, for example, a very interesting part, like where are you assigning the vendors? Because sometimes, for example, you need to really commit to certain deadlines. And you can only commit to the deadlines if you have all the project fully prepared with vendors there, ready to go at the click of the button. Sometimes this is not so urgent, or you've got like a more generous deadline, and then vendor assignment can happen later. Sometimes you know the vendors up front, sometimes you don't know the vendors. Then, when the vendors are taking the job, you obviously need to monitor the delivery, making sure that they are all going to deliver on time. Then we are getting into the quality management, automations. Well, automations, because even if you click a button of run QA, which is something that a lot of people do, uh, it's some kind of automation. It is looking through regular expressions and everything through the system. Uh, and some sort of quality management is quite important. We can talk about also like automating the quality management because this is one of my pet peeves recently. Uh, like, for example, where I don't see any reasonable use case is when project managers who don't speak a given language are running manually these QA tools, trying to fix the errors uh, where they don't speak the language. I mean, every LLM is better in any language, no matter if it's like uh, high resource or low resource language, than a person who doesn't speak it, I believe, at least. So this kind of like whether you are doing your own language or some other languages, how you are doing that, because very often you can already trust your reviewer to do the quality assurance, or you can just include it in the workflow. I don't know how many of you are familiar, for example, with Lexica, LexiQA, if you like, but their official way of saying it is Lexica. So Lexica, for example, is an API-based quality assurance tool. Just imagine a workflow, which is not so hard to do. Imagine a workflow that you are running, for example, on the final XLIF, you are running this API-based quality assurance, which gives you a list of errors. But what's the problem with every QA? The false positives. Uh, the the thing that you get like a lot of errors for things that are not errors really in reality. Now, this is where, for example, using an LLM makes perfect sense uh, to filter out those where it is sure that you are not making a mistake with that, and then just bring to the people's eyes those errors or those kind of like warnings, let's say, that really make sense. Uh, then comes delivery finalization. I mean, let's not forget, even in the world of AI, nobody found a way for automating DTP. DTP still exists. It's not the continuous localization story, obviously, uh, but here we are talking more about like some general stuff than the continuous localization. Then there is delivery, which is like according to the instructions, putting the content back. And then there is some sort of invoicing, if there is invoicing, or like, internal cost settlement. I mean, an enterprise may be using like internal charges. A translation company may be like actually issuing invoices. Uh, in some companies, there is no internal charging, but there is a budget that they work against. I mean, you need to keep track of the budget and you see how much you got left and who can use it. These are all important matters, I believe. And what's the issue? So let's go through these different systems again. Project ingestion. Uh, you can have CMS extensions in CMSs. So you can actually start a project, translation project, from a content management system, meaning like I'm editing this tool, let's say in English, if English is the source language. I'm editing this page, and I would like to have it translated and offered because I'm ready with my source. Then directly from a system like Sitecore or SAP Hybris or Contentful or others, You just have a little sidebar that says send to translation, and it should send it there. Then you've got the emails, Outlook, Gmail, you name it. Some companies are using task management systems. So your colleagues, when they are trying to get something translated, they are giving you a Jira ticket or an Asana. I think it's also called ticket. And they upload the file there and basically assign it to you so that you can take care of it. Then there are the file repositories, which is like basically uploaded files that need translation. You get a URL and off you go. Uh, Hopefully, you know what the languages are and what the expectations are. Then you got the TMS uh, as a project ingestion step. Like when you, for example, receive a complicated file, uh, in the second step, like in the first step, you manually import this because you want to see which file filter to use, whether it worked, what to convert into tags, for example, these kind of things, what to lock out from translation so that people should not touch it. This is something that can be automated reasonably well once you've done it manually. You can only automate what you've done manually. This is like my observation, and I think it's a safe bet. Uh, I would be careful about, going into automation without trying a workflow manually. And and like later you can have a TMS template that is automating this fully, but in the first place, somebody has to do that filter. Then you've got the business management system connectors that may come from, for example, Star CLM or others. Your customer portals. Look here. Uh, Plunet is offering a customer portal, XTRF is offering a customer portal, Phrase is offering, XTM is, MemoQ is, SmartLink is. Three of these are coming from a business management system. Three of these are coming from a translation management system. Which one is the right approach? Uh, I mean, usually every organization uses the customer portal of the system that they find more important for themselves. And naturally, for an enterprise, the translation management system is more important, whereas for an LSP, the business management system is more important. Then you've got CMS middleware. So in the previous step, you could see that there were some CMS extensions and things. These may be managed by CMS middleware. Eilengel, earlier Clay Tablet was one of these, and so on and so forth. Orchestrators, very good tools to create some requests if they can. But that means that both the source system that you are extracting information from and the target system is fully connected. At BeLazy, we use mostly make.com, and we have had some experience with N8N. The thing is that we've got like a lot of customers who are using make.com, for example, for templated email parsing. It's a fairly simple thing, regular expressions, they send an email is picked up, regular expressions are extracting the information, pushing it into BeLazy. We are doing quite a lot of this, but there is also other types of orchestrations that one can make. LSPs also have APIs. Companies like LanguageWire and Lionbridge have built APIs that some of their companies are using. This is not a very typical ingestion source. Not a lot of people are talking about it, but maybe those customers want to move somewhere else. You're an LSP. Why don't you just imitate the same API? With an orchestrator, you can perfectly do that. Connected TMSs and email assistant are the second step. So in the first step, we could see email. We need to somehow get information out of the email and get into some kind of metadata. So with metadata, these are the steps. And what can you see here? Like with the customer portal, we're talking about TMS-based, BMS-based customer portal. There is not one system anymore. Then you get into the project preparation. You've got all of these different things. I think that you've got multimedia training. I don't know if DTP was touched in any of these topics, And you've got the project preparation where you are creating some projects in TMSs. These are things that can come from an API or they can come from tools like Plunet or XDRF have their phrase, MemoQ, Trados, whatsoever connections. What else do you do in project preparation? I mean, you assign TMs. If you have selected a project template, probably it's already done. You do some segment locking, which is an automated step. Basically, this is either done by, a project template. In Phrase, it's an orchestrator that would do it. In RWS, it's an automated step as well. I mean, Trados Team or Enterprise. Uh, you can also do other things. You can also do a machine translation preparation, and you probably have heard a lot about this. And here there are some excellent middleware tools like both Intento and CustomMT. They have their place in the market. Uh, and as they are able to abstract away the text, they are kind of middleware for the machine translation and the text processing. And then finally, you've got the machine translation quality estimation. Here we put model front. I didn't put tau. Sorry about that. Also a player in that. Phrase is doing this QPS, which is quality prediction score, if I'm not wrong, which is part of the Phrase TMS suite of tools. So again, we are using so many tools. Then quoting. Now look at this. You need two things to send a quote. And the problem is that one is exclusively coming from TMSs, and another is, I would say, almost exclusively coming from BMSs. It's not really true, because there are some TMSs that have some pricing capabilities. For example, Phrase has price lists and net rate schemes. For example, I mean, Word Server, obviously. Trados Enterprise has pricing capabilities. Um, Global Link definitely has pricing capabilities. These are tools that are uh, kind of expensive. So just to say that for the pricing capability, I mean, it's quite a big thing. And one thing that you need to know is that I don't think any of the no, I may be wrong. I may be wrong. I think Crowdin has some pricing capabilities, but right now I'm not sure. If you know these things, then please drop some comments. I would be interested in hearing. But generally, the point is that even if you've got the customer pricing, you also need the vendor pricing, and that's always coming from the business management systems. Or vice versa. Sorry, one price is coming from the TMS and different prices are coming from the business management system. Then you do the second analysis. Would you call this a post-translation analysis? Would you call this a homogeneity or internal fuzzies analysis? But something is there. Very often, we've seen companies that, to their customers, they are charging the TM analysis because that's what they're requesting. But to the vendors, they have a different agreement, which may be just the like internal fuzzy taken into account. It may be some sort of like machine translation, quality estimation based analysis. It may be a post analysis, which is actually very hard to manage, or anything else. Then comes the vendor assignment, which is like basically this is the only point where you are starting to see profits or losses. Because for a vendor to be assigned, you need the vendor's pricing, you need the vendor's metrics, which is like how good this vendor is, uh, and what are they capable of doing. So you are not going to give a vendor that only speaks English and Spanish a German job. And then there is the vendor availability, which is also very important because it may be that the vendor is on vacation, but it also may be that they are just already having too many like urgent deadlines and they are not able to take on more. There are some tools here also on vendor assignment that allow you the automatic offering of the job to various people. And for example, here it's interesting that when it comes to these first come, first serve, TMSs have pretty good solutions to that. But then how do you get the thing into the business management system? Delivery monitoring, which is post-translation analysis, reminders, risk management. This is, for example, one area where something like an MCP that I showed yesterday, to you, that makes a lot of sense. Then you've got the quality management automations, automated post-editing you have heard about. Probably you even tried it. Quality assurance, LQA, all of these things. Then you need to create the final file, create the video, create the DTP. These are the typical things where you've got the delivery finalization. The finalization may be as simple as like clicking a button on export and just having a quick look, or it may be much more complicated. And then you also have the delivery, which is like you are uploading files back. If you were working with XLIF, you are uploading the XLIF file. If you were working with source file, you are uploading the target files. If you are working with packages, you are uploading the back packages. What else are you uploading? You may even upload some notes and things like that. And you somehow close the project and say that we are done with this. There are several ways of closing it as well. And then finally, you've got the invoicing, which is one topic is you sending an invoice. Another topic is double checking whether the customer has the same understanding of the jobs that you were doing versus what you had registered. I mean, this is needed because of the human mistakes. And for example, in continuous localization with automation, probably this is like this can be made much less important. So basically, these are the different activities that you do in a translation project, mostly on the vendor side, but to a certain extent, you also do it on the client side. And if you look back on these logos everywhere, it's a lot of systems. And the thing is that it's not one system doing it all. So this is the reason why we came to the conclusion that some sort of a connection or some sort of a unification is needed to allow these systems to work together efficiently. Because a lot of the human project management inefficiencies are actually coming from the fact that they need to operate multiple tools, and that's all. And then we were thinking like where to start, and this is where the metadata approach came in. With metadata, you can describe everything. It's data about data. And in reality, this is also helping a lot in organizing your processes, seeing the different capabilities, because it's not rocket science. I mean, you do like checklists and pick lists and these kind of things, or you may not even do that, but may able to base your processes on the right information. You probably have heard the expression shift left. I mean, shift left is something which may sound a little bit like weird, but it makes perfect sense, because if you define everything up front and you don't start the project until everything is defined up front, then the project delivery is going to be much faster and much more precise. And what's more, the data quality is going to be better as well. You don't need data cleanup. Quality assurance becomes easier. A lot of things. There's a lot of benefit to that. And in reality, like what I'm seeing is that people have an image of, shift left being like impossible because people are not able to tell, but it's not. It's like very often you need to define 5 things. So don't imagine it as anything really complicated, because it's not very complicated. It is just a little bit of a discipline. It's a bit like, respect for other people's time, which is something that if you respect other people's time, you can tell other people that they should respect your time. And this works in every organization. And that means that you are able to do some better work. And then if you look at the different steps here, the first 3 steps are there because in the first three steps, automations are saving preparation time. You are just faster. Uh, but unless you've got the vendors assigned and the project is fully prepared, uh, this is the moment when you can feel certain that the project can go, or like 99.9%, it's going to go according to the schedule if everybody committed and signed off on this. And then if you're looking at 7 to 11, that is the actual project time. So it's the project preparation is more than half, or getting the project ready is more than half of the steps than the actual delivery. But what you need to know is a lot of this can be done based on rules. So here is a little bit like how we are thinking about systems. Uh, a TMS is important because it has good file filters. It can create analysis, pre-translating, locking segments, and so on and so forth. And it's offering a translation interface, which means that humans are able to work in it. A business management system or a tracker, here again, if you don't want Plunet, think about Google Sheet, think about Airtable, things like that. Um, this is what keeps track of every project. This is, if you like, the history of your improvements. This is the history of how you have managed everything and what were the results, and all data can come out that are showing the process quality from here. Then there is the language processing, which are things that are making the whole thing like much more solid, much more automated on a text level. So this is where you are working with quality. This is where you are, I mean, if you look at it, the simplest translation is basically, you just put another string there. But we all know that that's not it. We all know like how many layers, how many sources of information translation needs to go through in order to guarantee that what is there is really valid. And this is a very important part, but from a technical perspective, it's replacing of a source text. So from a technical perspective, this is actually less process oriented than the others because you basically put in a source text, you wait a bit, you get something out of it, which is most likely the target text, but it may be comments, it may be segment statuses, it may be locks, it may be percentage, something like that. Then you've got these simple actions like notifications, emails, Teams, Slack, Front, Discord, you name it. I actually pretty much like Discord, I must say. And then you've got the orchestrators to allow other capabilities. So the thing is that what we found is that the TMS BMS complexity, the problem scope, the errors, what can go wrong, somebody deleted a job, somebody deleted a file, these kind of things. The system is down. Of course, other systems can also be down. For example, somebody re-imported a file, these things. These are like very complex things where you can model it in scenarios, but there's a lot of scenarios to model here. And they need to run in a harmonized way. And this is why we decided to concentrate very much on this linkage. And then we've got a question from Remy. To get these skills in practice, what would be the best long-term approach for maximum understanding and expertise creation? Oh, that's a good question. Does anybody have an answer? I mean, it's trying things. I think that when I was learning all of these systems and like how you work with them, I mean, I was trying to fail and try things, but I totally understand that not everybody has the time for that because we are doing this in order to sell this capability. And this is when we are saying that what we are doing in Belays is about 40% of our budget is trying and failing. But we are happy to share this. So some of it you need in practice for sure. Some of it is something that you can ask in forums, in other ways. And if you ever have a question, I mean, I will leave my email address. Please, everybody, contact me. those things that we already know don't cost us anything to share. So before we get into the second alternative, I would like to stop for a second and have a little bit of a look into Be Lazy itself. Let me know if you are seeing the system and like what I'm talking about when I'm talking about metadata. Okay. You can see everything. Yes, thank you very much. Thank you very much. So some of these concepts, okay, the fonts are small. Let me make them bigger, maybe even bigger. That's good. Cool. So yesterday, if you remember, we created these so-called opportunities where we were able to put certain information. And what you see here is that there is a connection. This is coming from MemoQ, and this is coming from phrase TMS. And look at it. The metadata that we are talking about is very, very different. So you have here like client and domain, and you could have subject and project information. I mean, there is more that we store than what is here. Whereas in phrase, what you see here is client, cost center, business unit, workflow, number, and so on and so forth. For example, here you get the checkout link, which is a MemoQ link. This is for the application itself rather than the web, and the web link here, and the web link here. And then each file has some sort of a link and also got some other information there, which is weighted and total word count, languages, deadlines, and so on and so forth. So this is how the systems are differing. And what you can see is that when you are setting up a project, and here I'm running to my wipe-coded little app. I don't know if this is what I showed yesterday, Lovable. It's very nice, but developers don't like it, just so that you know. One of the things you can do is add custom metadata fields. This is what we call extra data. And here you can put anything. You can put cost center, you can put billing address, you can put who is going to be the reviewer. You can put information whether you want machine translation or human translation, anything. What is important is that this is later not immediately used, but it's used through a transformation to metadata. What am I talking about? Let me create here something. Project name is going to be a fully automated attempt. Then I'm going to put a customer email. I regret having added this field. We're going to go from English. Let's say we are just going into one language at this point. Let's do Italian, which is a language I don't speak. And I need it by 29th. I mean, obviously, if it's a fully automated one, you will not need it by the 29th. And I have this file right now that I'm going to upload. I could upload more than that, which is called demo1.docx. All right. And I can put here, for example, audience, TranslaStars. I can add here, for example, workflow full automate. I can add here things like, register, informal, things like that. So when I create the translation order, oh no, this is the same that happened yesterday. My apologies. I need to redo it because I'm not logged in. Let's do it again quickly because I just wanted to show you the stories. Fully automated attempt. It's my, no. my email address. We were going into Italian. The deadline doesn't really matter. And then we put audience, TranslaStars. Then we put VF full auto. Then we put what was register and form. And then we created the translation order. Now it worked. Very good. So I'm coming here, and this is one way of the project ingestion. I could do many other ways. And was it created, or is it just that I'm logged into the wrong place? It was. It was, for some reason, the UI was not uploading. So I've got the file here, which I can download. And while I don't see more information here, what I actually see is if I go to this connection, the customer portal connected, and I click on edit automation, then the system is fetching my information from the TMS, which is memo queue in my case, this existing projects in this so-called workspace, and the business management system, which in this case is Plunet. You could do it with any other. And look, this is what I'm talking about. So we were talking about audience, and we can say that if the audience is TranslaStars, then please use this project template in my memo queue, in my phrase, in my XTM, you name it. Basically, that project template is containing information about my TMs and everything, so I can do this. For example, if later, what I want to do is instead of this, I want to use another thing for importance, which is WF workflow. I can also say add the rule if the workflow is full auto, which is what we used, then use this be lazy tra R1. And I will tell you why I'm using that. Otherwise, use the be lazy TMS tra R1, R2. These are like, workflows, basically. This is a 3-step workflow. This is a 2-step workflow. And because this is an AI topic, we are going to get to this. What else can I do? What to do with the project name? The project name is going to be my project name. And this is how we are creating the TMS project. So the project in the memo queue. But after that, we also have another story, which is the business management system project. And this is where you are using the same concepts of metadata-based decisions in order to map incoming values to outgoing values in the different systems. What can I see here? These are all of my customers in my Plunet. If I go into Plunet, I will see that I've got these customers with these currencies. If this was an XTRF, I would see actually the price profiles. And I can mention like what are the things that matter to me. For example, currency is one thing that can matter to me. If I've got different types of tools, I can have, for example, the what we put here is the audience. Let's say if, first I always need to select what matters to me in order to make it readable. That's the only reason. What matters to me in this decision? So you don't have to look at all the metadata field combinations. And now you can say if audience is TranslaStars, then this is going to be the customer on Be Lazy. Project managers, same story. Most people do it by the customer. Specializations. These are the specialization values that were offered. These are my specialization values that are offered in Plunet, and this is something that is helping me in selecting the right translator. If I want to do that, I can do all of this. If I don't want to do that, I'm just going to say that all of my specialization is going to be dummy. Then comes the templates. Do I want to use a project template? Do I want to use a quote template? Depending on different setups, which project template I would like to use. Workflows, and this is most important. Look, this is how it is. So there is a certain workflow, and you can actually add here additional workflows as exceptions. This is where it's becoming like the exception-based project management. That what I'm saying is that if the workflow value is including these things, then use one PlueNet workflow. These are my PlueNet workflows. But I can also say here that instead of that, I use WF. So let me just delete this and say if WF is full auto, then I'm going to use a different workflow template. And what can I do here? Basically, depending on whether this is a TMS or a system where you just get content from and then give it back, like in this case, the portal is just such a content, you can decide like what are you charging for? Are you actually charging just one price for translation, or are you separately charging for post editing and proofreading? What are you paying for? Let's say I've got internal post editors and proofreaders, so I'm not paying extra. What are you having the linguist assignments with? In the case of a portal project, you don't have linguist assignment, but in the case of other projects coming from TMSs, you definitely can decide whether it's the TMS linguist that goes into the business management system, it's the business management linguist that goes into the translation management system, or you have like a central linguist selection logic, a third logic that is going into both systems. What is qualifying as a job closing? Are you closing the job in PlueNet when the equivalent job is closed in MemoQ? Or are you closing the job in MemoQ when the equivalent job is closed in PlueNet? Well, both can be an option, because if you have to, for example, sign or tick off some checkboxes that I have done let's say a spell check before transferring this, you cannot do that in MemoQ. You can do that in PlueNet. So then you would go from PlueNet into MemoQ. If you need to, for example, like make the life easier for a translator, I mean, they are working in MemoQ. Why would they work in PlueNet? You just want all of the bookkeeping to be up to speed. That's what you would do there. And then you've got the deliverable uploads, which is very important as we will look at it, in the case of XLib-based LLM application. But what I'm trying to show here is very simple, because what I'm just trying to show here is just that, this is what the metadata-based project management is, where you've got like any type of value, and the value numbers are not, restricted, and everything calls a unit something. I mean, you can have word, weighted word, source word, you can have line or something like that. You can have minimum fee, you can have flat fee, you can have whatever it is called, but there is always something. And then this is like how you do the different match rates. This is a bit complicated in PlueNet, not so complicated in other tools. But you see that if I get a 95 to 99% match rate from my source system, I want to assign it to the price line versus translation 95, 99% match. It will be different for post editing, which is also an option here. Where is it? Post editing is here. So in post editing, I actually have words PE full. And I can even add everything here. Language mapping, bundling. This is what we were talking about. I'm not going to go into detail here. Name mapping, what's going to be the name of the project in the business management system, depending on the name of the project in the translation management or in the origin system. What to do with files, whether you want to store files in Belazy. If you want to execute, for example, LM capabilities, you need to do that. Otherwise, if you are like concerned about the security of the files, you just transfer it and then we delete everything. And then you've got like all of these instruction fields that different systems are offering different text fields to put together. For example, job description is for your translators. And then you basically can refer back, sorry, with the add button, you can refer back to any of the source information, including the audience. This is your project, something like that. Okay, cool. So this is actually how you are trying to set up everything to a reasonable degree of sophistication. And that's it. This is actually, no matter if you're working like this was a system which was just an API. Now, if I look at, for example, my phrase system, I can decide if I'm working with project-based model or with continuous model, which is like you can add new jobs to an existing project. I can decide on some things like how I want the analysis to be done, whether I'm getting the analysis or I'm creating the analysis, what to do, for example, with the delivery, whether the jobs should be delivered or completed, things like that. But it's only like 1 or 2 pages per source system that they have their peculiarities. And then it starts to load everything. The only thing that you will see here differently is the project exclusion, which are projects that we are not able to see either here. But you will see that everything else is pretty much the same. It's coming in a second. Look, this is the project exclusion mapping. So these are the information that you get from phrase. And then after that, customers and currencies, project managers, specializations, template mapping, workflows, units. We've done the exact same thing as before. The only thing that is different here is the linguist mapping. Because obviously in a system where there are no linguists, there is no need for linguist mapping. So otherwise, everything is exactly the same. If you look at MemoQ, which is another system, you see that the MemoQ options are somewhat different because the system is different. Like you can see here, for example, that you can create like 2 analyses, one for payables, one for receivables with homogeneity. This is something you can do also in phrase. You can do, for example, you can decide to separate projects by languages. We had some customers who received like all languages, but they were only responsible for doing a couple of them. There was no easier way of doing this. But after this 1-page configuration, which is specific to one system, you are going to get exactly the same thing. The only thing is that in MemoQ, we've got way more projects, so it's going to take a little longer to load the projects now. And we are getting almost to our little break. But before we get to a 5-minute break, let me just do one thing, because this is actually not a very fast system, but I wanted to show you some workflows relating to AI processing. So I'm just going to leave this, and you believe me, okay? And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to create a TMS project here. This is going to create the English-Italian MemoQ project. It's almost done. Yeah, it's successfully created. We can have a quick look at it. It's always good to see what we are doing, right? One second. I mean, what's happening is that I don't have enough licenses. This is something that happens with MemoQ sometimes with us. Sorry about that. We only have 2 licenses, but I told my colleagues not to log in. But I think it's still be lazy taking up the license. Give me half a minute. Much better. So here is the file. I mean, it was one file, it could be many. you can see that it's an empty project summary report. Okay. Any Italian speakers among you? Because as I mentioned, I don't speak it. Apparently no. I actually had a, oh yes, Katie, very good. Oh, Julia, of course. I mean, I kind of thought that. So you will have to help us with this because I'm not the right person. So this is the fully automated attempt. What I did is that I just synchronized the memo queue connection. So I'm taking this further through the memo queue connection and I go back to the original one. You can see the file links. You can see that there is the translation and review one. So we are only doing two. And basically what I'm going to do is just accept this project. By accepting this project, I'm creating the project from MemoQ into Plunet. This is like you can see that it's already somewhere. And look what's gonna happen. And I think that we looked at it yesterday already. Now this is that we are going to work with certain prompt templates and we are going to see some webhooks. I'll explain what webhooks are a little later, but for the time being, let's give the system a little time to relax. You see, it's already processing the Italian. It's done. So I can actually look at the Italian translation and the different, like what I used as a prompt. I used as a prompt, translate from EN to IT, provide accurate natural translations, critical, this thing, and it was the segment team productivity improved. Okay. La produttività del team è migliorata. I think that's how you say it. I don't dare to speak it. So one by one, it actually pushed the projects, sorry, the segments to here. I also see that altogether the cost of this was like 0.0025 cents. I think I can offer this to the group free of charge. And then basically now what we are looking at is in this fully automated attempt, we are looking at this going back into MemoQ. And this is the moment that I would let you go for like a 5-minute break. And what I would do in the meantime is I would also do another project with 3 steps where there is a human post editing using the exact same interface, but a little different metadata. So we'll see each other, let's say at 20 past the hour. So it's 12 past the hour, 20 past the hour, we are continuing. Hey, so we are back. Uh, Everybody here, hello. I'm wondering what you can see. Yes, okay. I'm resuming my screen. So this automation actually went through, and we are going to look at that. I also wanted to show you that basically, based on the MemoQ templates selected workflow, we are performing different types of activities. This one is with translation, editing, and proofreading. And this one is with translation quality assurance. You can call it anything because these are business management system steps. So you can say machine translation, automated post editing. You can say machine translation quality estimation, anything you can call these. The important thing is that these words, translation quality assurance, and these translation editing, and no proofreading because I didn't enable the downloading of the files. This can be a human thing. These are the ones that I'm using here for the prompting. So what you see here is editing, quality assurance, and translation. So depending on the business management system job type, you're performing different kinds of prompting on each segment of an XLIF. So what does an XLIF look like? Are you all familiar with the XLIF format? We are going to look at one. Uh, so what you can see is that, for example, in the case of the translation, I mean, we looked at it. And what can AI edit? The target text, the match rate, the comments. I mean, if you are doing automated post editing, you want to edit the target text. If you're doing machine translation, you want to edit the target text. If you're doing machine translation quality estimation, you don't want to edit the target text. You want to edit something else. So for example, uh, here, in the case of, sorry, cancel. In the case of quality assurance, you would like to edit the match rate and you would like to edit the comments, but you are not trying to edit something. This, for example, uh, this prompt, it is like, it's not the AutoMQM, Gemba. I don't know if you're familiar with Gemba, this one. So this paper is actually giving you a prompt, and I quite cheekily just copy pasted this over. It says that omits the gray part, which performed subpar on internal data, and so on and so forth. So what do we get here? I mean, here, this is like, sorry, here, this is like where you see the actual process of the machine translation and the editing. So I go back into webhooks. I can see the different values, the different texts. But this is obviously not the only place where you should be able to see the different texts. So we were talking about Italian. You see, it came to translation and it came to quality assurance. We looked at the translation earlier. Let's look at the quality assurance. I'm going here, like, team productivity improved was basically la produttività del team migliorata o migliorata, I think. And it says it's perfect. It's a 100% match. And it's giving me comments for this prompt. 95% match, accurate, and maintains the meaning. Uh, the only minor issue is the lack of punctuation before mantenendo, which could enhance readability. What are we talking about? Le vendite sono aumentate, mantenendo. So I don't know, Julia, would you put a comma there? Is this correct? Would you put some punctuation there? And going on, so I mean, we can see, but this was not particularly a super challenging text, but we can see the details of this thing. And what do we see in MemoQ? If we go back into MemoQ, let me just close this. Let me go back here. What I see is that this actually went through. So in MemoQ, I'm supposed to see the fully automated attempt. Uh, is it small again? Okay, then I'll try to make it bigger. Okay, so what you see is that the workflow is completed. I didn't touch this project, so everything was automated. And I can see here that the translations were all inserted. So this was the fully automated project. It actually inserted it and then it evaluated it. So we did a machine translation quality evaluation. I don't know if this is realistic, but the idea that I'm trying to show you is that no matter whether you are working with MemoQ or XTM or I don't know, localize, this should be possible via XLIF. And then the other project, which is not yet fully done, is this other one which I made when you were on break. What I'm seeing is that it is finished in PluNet, but it's not yet in MemoQ. Now it is in MemoQ for the translation step. This is for translation into Spanish and German. Here, my workflow steps were translation and editing. So I'm getting the editing as the next step. What do I see right here? If I go back to webhooks, and I'll explain webhooks in a minute, you will see that it's actually right now editing. Spanish is done. German is done too. And we need to wait until Belazy does its work. It's not the fastest system, but I mean, obviously it is meant to automate. So it might take a couple of minutes until we get there. So what we see is that there was a translation, which we can look at, for example, let's look at German first, and then let's look at Spanish. I mean, here in German, this is a different stack. Request rate limits are enforced at 1,000 calls per minute. Die Anforderungsrate wird auf 1,000 Aufrufe pro Minute beschränkt. You see here the different translations with the right tagging. So this is actually something that worked. You see here the cost and so on and so forth. This was the same translation prompt. What is different is the editing prompt. And here you will see, examine if the translation is correct and if the target text is funny or not. If it is not funny, make it either rhyme or include a joke in it. Only include the corrected translation in the answer, nothing else. Do not put the answers into quotation marks. I mean, this is obviously trial and error. And change the target text. So let's see what came out of this. We are going to prove that German humor does exist. So, even if it's automated. The REST API provides comprehensive access to system resources. Die REST API bietet umfassenden Zugriff auf Systemressourcen, damit Sie Ihr System in den Griff bekommen, ohne dass es zur Ressourcenverschwendung wird. Okay, that's super funny, but I mean, this text is a bit hard to make funny. Actually, the other one, you will see the Spanish one, the other one was Das ist der Trick. Denn Books sind wie schlechte Witze. Man findet sie immer zur falschen Zeit. So there is like a little bit of a joke here, which is like bugs are like bad jokes. It's always the bad time for it, or something like that. So it's actually enriching the stuff. And it's also doing that in Spanish. And what about the Spanish jokes? Are they any better? I mean, it's hard to joke about technical documentation. Okay, a little bit of a joke. Without tokens, there is no fun. In Spanish, I realized that Claude really likes to joke about coffee. So it's like request rate limits are enforced at 1,000 calls per minute, are a bit like this, so that you are not going to start dialing like a telephone operator with infinite caffeine or something like that. I'm making it spur requested. And then here is a bit more joke, like response data is returned in JSON format with standard HTTP status codes. And you got the joke here that they are so standard that even your grandmother would understand that if she knew what is HTTP. So you see, it's got a little bit of a humor. I mean, why I put this is that obviously we are not taking this seriously because I'm showing more the infrastructure of things rather than the actual prompting. With prompting, you need to do a lot of experimentation. But what you are able to see is that you are able to include this based on metadata into like different tools and with different kind of providers and different models and different prompts. So there is a possibility to route everything through prompting. So while this is still working, which is probably going to take a while because I forgot to close this and probably it's not having licenses right now, uh, I think this is something that could conclude my demo. But I promised to tell you what the webhooks are. Super useful because I think you hear about APIs. We use the APIs with the MCP server. We use APIs for like a lot of different activities to create projects, to query projects, to see the status of things, to assign linguists, and so on and so forth. But maybe webhooks are not so familiar for you. Who is familiar with webhooks? Apparently no one. Okay, so a webhook is basically telling you that like one system is configured to tell you when they have done something. So imagine you are with a coworker. Coworker asks you to translate something. There are two ways to know for the coworker when you are ready. One is to check the clock and every 5 minutes ask you like, are you ready? Are you ready? Are you ready? And the other thing is that the coworker, you ask the coworker, please tell me when you are ready. And then the coworker comes to you and says, I'm ready. But the coworker may sometimes forget to notify you despite your agreement, which is like what you call a network loss. And then it's still useful if, every hour you go to the coworker, are you ready? Rather than every 5 minutes. So this is the webhook. Basically, a webhook is a way of systems to notify other systems that they are done with something. Think about this. Email notification. Probably you all know what email notifications are. A webhook is an email notification without an email. So it's the same story. On certain events, you are sending some information. What is cool about this is that with a webhook, you can easily automate, for example, Slack message. You can automate a Teams message. You can send an email, or you can tell another system to perform an API call. This is what makes things fast. So what I was doing here is that I was using this webhook, which is files from the origin system are ready for processing. And here is a preview of this. And you see a lot of blah blah here, like project ID. This is the BLazy project ID. BMS project ID. This is your project in Plunet. Source language, file type, file name, file ID, target language, workflow step. This is all we needed for the prompting. We don't need anything else. Based on this information, and this is actually the most useful thing here, that the workflow step is here because I know based on the workflow step what I need to perform. And basically this information triggered the processes. And this was the information that was being used. So what happened here is that there was a webhook and lovable, which was so-called firing all the time. And that's basically my explanation. I'm wondering if there are any questions here, any doubts, any observations. It's still taking a bit, but we'll make it there. Nice and clear. Oh, then let's go back. You know what? This thing I didn't show now, like how you are assigning the BMS, the linguist between the different tools, how the tools are closing. I mean, what I didn't show is also that this had a other project, which is a Plunet project. And this Plunet project had all the information set up for the MemoQ project. It had the customer selected, it had the project manager selected, as you remember. The area of specialization was dummy. We selected this. A naming convention there was. The order due date was selected. Language combination here. The price list was also selected. The prices were put together on the customer side. And besides all this, the jobs were also put together with a volume, and you can see that the jobs were delivered. So all of these things have happened automatically. So you had a full track of what went through, even though the whole thing was automated from the beginning to the end. I mean, the only thing that I didn't automate was the project ingestion. Julia is saying, would it be possible to have a closer look at the webhooks? Maybe another practical example. Yes, definitely. I mean, for example, one webhook here, I'm talking BeLazy, but I can talk other systems as well. There is no need to talk about BeLazy. But one of the webhooks here is, for example, ready opportunities. Ready opportunities means that the system detected a new piece of work. Okay, so this actually means that there is something, for example, I created through the portal a new project. A customer created a project in their TMS, which was synchronized into BeLazy, things like that. You would like to send the web, let's say, an email about this. That is one thing you can do. Another thing you can do is that, for example, when the job came in, let's say, from your customers, I don't know, XTM or something, and in XTM you already have a weighted word count and the different categories and everything, you could simply send an email with a PDF document in it using an orchestrator that I confirm this job, and like you got all the information in there. Another thing that I can imagine, which a lot of our customers are doing, is that if they have, for example, customers sending jobs in vendor portals, let's say they are translators, they are working for somebody using XTRF. XTRF sends an email, and they are using in make.com, they are using something called a mail hook. A mail hook is like when an email comes in, an event is happening. What that event is that it actually triggers a synchronization in BeLazy so that we immediately can pick it up. Then another thing that happens is that when there is a ready opportunity like this, while the system has an auto acceptance capability, its auto acceptance capability of projects is not like super sophisticated. It doesn't allow you everything. But there are some people that say that, I want to take only those projects that are up to 500 words if it's within 24 hours, and then up to 2000 words if it's within 2 days. But those I want to take automatically, but I don't want to take those projects that are less than 55 words, things like that. This is another thing that they can do. They receive a webhook, they are listing the opportunity, they are evaluating the opportunity, and based on that, they are using an API call to accept the project, something like that. Others are actually using it to infuse extra information. So, for example, there is a new opportunity coming in, and they take the file, they send the file to some kind of AI tool, I mean, especially if it's XLIF, and they are having a look at, for example, the subject matter. They can have a look at, I don't know, they can have a look at for example, the difficulty of a text. And then based on this, they are writing another piece of metadata into the opportunity before accepting it, so that the actual evaluation of whether it goes automatic, whether it goes manual, what kind of workflow to run, what kind of pricing to give, depends on the evaluation of the LLM. This is something that's also possible with webhooks. Julia, did I explain myself? I mean, obviously there are other things like, you can also have a webhook based, like when, for example, a new message is written into Slack, then you start a trigger, and then that trigger is going into, does it have a file attached? Does it have some tags attached? Based on that, it starts, let's say, a project in, I don't know, BeLazy or anywhere else, things like that. Remy is asking, what are some of the new features planned for BeLazy in the near future? I mean, one topic that we are like super excited about is vendor management. And why we are super excited about vendor management is that so far we have never seen a tool that is able to do, separate people like in-house teams, where your goal is to fill the capacity, uh, external teams, external like language service providers, where basically you've got infinite scalability but rather higher costs, and freelancers where availability is super important, but the costs may be lower than at a company. So that is basically one of the areas that we are looking at. Also, like things like how to register time, things like this. So what we are trying to do is basically fill the gaps. That is our main goal. We are not trying to reinvent the wheel, but there is a lot of database management. I mean, you can also see some of the reports we have. For example, one of the things we do is like identify where the bottlenecks are. Let's say you've got a business management approach, and translate, like project managers are assigning translators. You can blame translators if they are delayed, if you were giving enough time. But it can happen that the translator was only, uh, assigned the job one day before the deadline, and it was 3,000 words. Then you cannot really do that. So understanding these kind of nuances and making sure that the processes are optimized for like delivery. We see this as the way of keeping the human project, kind of the human touch to translation with an added value. I mean, this is kind of like we are trying to gear up to address the AI-based translation, because sometimes people are like really blinded by AI, and this is something which happens a lot because the less I mean, it just works. But those who are translating, those are usually the ones that can give examples why it's a bit less than that. And thank you very much, AO, for the clarification here. So what I'd like to quickly do is go back into my slides, and from now on it's going to be the slides, and I know that you're going to have another class after this. How do I go back to my slides? Buff. Here you go. We've seen the improvements of things, but let's look at reinventing. And please speak up if you are interested in speaking up. So there are some remarks I would add here. When you are translating manually, there is a proportional increase of the content, there must be a proportional increase on the people. This is not really the case with MT and LLM and AI. So maybe if we are reinventing something, we need to highlight what are the things where we are giving more value, and we are able to just improve things, and the scalability is going to not go like a straight line, but like higher up. Another thing that I actually heard about from some university panel at the Mid Central Europe conference is that young people who have been growing up uh, in the COVID era, they don't want to freelance. I mean, when I was young, everybody wanted to freelance because of higher pays, being able to work more, things like that. But today there is safety requested, uh, which I kind of understand. And then there is a third thing: AI does not ask for a minimum fee. Um, so I'm wondering, what are your thoughts about like reinventing things? Do you think that the old ways of doing continuous localization with people involved in the checking is going to remain, or the entire story is going to be reshuffled? Any thoughts? I can make you speak. I really would like to. Let's take a minute to reflect. Christo is suggesting reshuffling. How much I'm missing the feature from WhatsApp that you can see those three dots that somebody is typing. Okay, cool. So Remy is for more productivity, then human for quality control. And that the belief is that humans will always be smarter than AI. Uh, and then AO is there is space for reshuffling. However, I think that at this stage for AI development, humans are still a rewired step for many localization processes. Very interesting. I mean, I think the question is also like where you are putting it into the process. Because, I mean, you may not immediately have to review everything, but somehow you can also review on a batch. What are the things that are like giving away things. What I find with the rewiring is that things are changing so much, and I was experimenting with this MCP server before coming here. And what I found is that it works once and then it tries to do something completely different the other time. So like in a classical approach of, logical step building, it's kind of a hard thing to gate AI in process decisions. If you're asking me, it's also not easy to change people's ways, but like from a process management perspective, I think that there is still like a lot of like data-driven process management that can happen, and we don't necessarily always need AI. We may need certain data to be specified by AI. And what is hard is basically like how to know what to check, because you could improve things, but how to know what to check. And yeah, MTQA, APA, and HP absolutely makes sense. So I totally see that. And the question is, on the other hand, that some of the MTQE and APE needs to be like, these steps need to be evaluated also like independently. Is that like a new uh, line of work, or is it something which can be like kind of inferred by looking at the history of a segment where things were wrong. I mean, you can do the HPE and at the same time say that this was messed up at the MTQE level. You can do, for example, I mean, you also need to sometimes do like full checks to make sure that MTQE is not taking out all those things that are wrong, which it can. So there is still, I think, a lot to discuss here and a lot to look at. And I think that our task here is basically to give freedom for creativity uh, because different systems are solving things differently. And we like to work with people who are innovative. Uh, just a final thought, and then we are going to conclude. What are the areas where automation can help? This is basically uh, the summary of our last 7 years. We were talking today about the project flow on the one hand, which was like going between systems, and we were talking about modality. When I talk about modality, I talk about human, empty, or LLM. Thing is, empty is very easy to put into a workflow. LLM is not very easy to put into a workflow, but you can. There is the quality circuit, which is basically making sure that you are improving in quality in whatever way. When I'm thinking about LLMs, I'm actually thinking about automated vendors, same way as there are humans. Um, they even have a cost. Sales circuit is something that we already do. We didn't speak about it, be lazy, separating the CRM work from the actual project management, project quotation work, and making sure that in the CRM there is a linkage to the um, business management system. Then there is the finance circuit, which is the invoicing, which is the POs, which is actually the procurement systems as well. Reporting is super important. And what I think, and this is very important, is the outcome-based reporting is important. And because the outcome-based reporting is important, I always think that the only place where you can have decent reporting in an enterprise setting, I mean, is the business intelligence system. I'm talking Power BI, Tableau, Click, whatever you name it, Domo, uh, because those are the only systems that are able to take information from. I don't know if you can hear this honking. Sorry about it. Uh, these are the ones that are able to merge the information. This is where the metadata is very important because the metadata is going to be the same in your SEO tool than in your like translation system. This is why we are like very, very fond of metadata because that's where everything starts and everything goes back. Then there is the vendor circuit, which is the vendor evaluation. I think that and the quality circuit goes together very, very well. And then finally, there is a query management, which is still an unsolved problem. Let me just read your last message. Absolutely agreed uh, with your observation. Well, Be Productive, I don't know. Be Lazy was a name we got. We were into just like simplifying project management, and then later on we added other tiers such as like I mean when we started there was no publicly available LLM yet, uh, and then we didn't rename the company. So, but some of the product like the packages we have like the be prepared, be efficient, be lean, and now we are coming up with be scalable and with be unstoppable. Those are the ones that are talking about like changing and getting very productive. So finally, I think be lazy use case there is for freelancers, and I just wanted to offer to you that if anybody wants, I mean, it's mostly about like, vendor portal work. I don't see like many other things because you need a cloud-based system for it to work. But if anybody is interested in, works with multiple companies outsourcing from vendor portals, I can definitely offer you a couple of months, like I don't know, 6 months free of charge. You can try it and you can see like whether you are able to improve your business with it. Get in touch with me, please. My email is something that you've seen a million times, but I repeat it here at istván.lengyel@belazy.cat. And basically, we are at the end of this course. That's me. Please add me on LinkedIn. I would appreciate that. And mention, please, that you were here at the training, because some of the names I will remember, but I'm not promising all. So that would be metadata, metadata, and metadata. Thank you very much. Thank you, Anna. Really appreciate that. And oh, here is my email address and also my colleague. Sorry, I just copy pasted this slide. Many thanks to you. And I hope you are going to be able to use some of this in your daily work. Feel free to reach out anytime. I'm always happy to discuss things. And I look forward to meeting you on another thing. We do webinars ourselves. If you were interested in this, then please check on our website, which is belazy.cat. I think we are going to have one in December, but you can subscribe to the newsletter, and that's where we are definitely uh, offering that. So have a good next class and see you on another occasion. Thank you very much for bearing with me. Take care.